Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Good enough. Hello, and welcome to episode 94 of Flesh and Pod. We're getting to the point where it's time is a flat circle. But my name is Logan. I am your host. With me, as always, almost always, I should say, because I got abandoned last week.
I was waiting for that.
The vast majority of the time, Corporal Crank himself, Darick Oswald, Cranker. Did you do anything in Flesh and Blood?
I did not do anything in anything for like the last week and a half. I obviously did not participate in last week's broadcast. I had some health issues pop up. My brain hates me in more ways than one. And so I am just now back to where I'm like functioning somewhat normally, and I'm trying to play catch up on a number of things. So no, I didn't do anything in Flesh and Blood. I didn't do anything in Alpha Clash, Lorcana, barely recorded Star Wars. So if you watched Wampa Radio, I'm sorry. One of those episodes, you can tell I'm very clearly out of sorts, and that's because like I was just struggling to survive. I've not done a lot of anything, so no.
Yeah, I mean, big shout out again and a thank you to Mara Ferris for filling in. She did great. She was not that unbearable and was very well spoken, and yeah, kind of just contained it a little bit, which was a shock to me. I expected her to be ready to shoot some dicks off, and instead she provided insightful conversation. So
yeah, I was a little disappointed by the lack of cyborg justice, but I'll give her a pass.
Everybody gets one. But yeah, I didn't do a whole lot. We did our Thursday Armory. I guess I fucked around a little bit on the Thursday Armory because my birthday was on Friday. And usually I just like to do weird shit. And so instead of giving away armory prizes, I just built my own armory prizes out of the things I own. And so I gave away like a couple of playmats, like a Red in the Ledger playmat and a Shimmers playmat. What else was in there that was kind of cool? A Grasp of the Arc Knight. I had an extra one sitting around, so I threw that in there. Few of my like extra cold foils, a first ed rainbow foil Kasai, just cause, represent. So I did that and just kind of rewarded the locals for showing up. They seem to enjoy when I do weird shit, so I did weird shit. Played some classic constructed. I was apparently, and I think I knew this and then forgot this. And then was reminded of this, that Majin Bey and I have the same birthday. I think we figured that out last year, and then we both lost track of it. So I was actually accidentally channeling my inner Majin Bey and playing Icelander. I'm never doing that again. Like, hard pass. Just, nope. Not for me. So that is going to be going to the wayside for ProQuest season. And we'll be looking at other things for ProQuest season. So yeah, that's all I did. Saturday I played Kingdom Death Monster. If you've never played Kingdom Death, that game is a lot. And it's fun as hell, but it's a lot. So did that for several hours and then just chilled and vibed on Sunday. That was pretty great. But in the meantime, there's been a whole lot of bullshit that has been heaped onto our plates. I am still trying to, I did not even put it all in the show notes because reasons. There's so much of it. I don't really do show notes very well. They're pretty shit most of the time because I don't know what I'm doing. But we're going to start off in the territory of the most recent news, which is the banned and suspended announcement. So we'll just get into the syntax, the data, if you will, as this will be a data-driven show. God, I fucking hate you. You have done this to me. You have made me this way, and it pisses me off.
I've barely even spoken so far this episode.
It's just the presence. I made zero puns when Mara was on. And then here you are with your fucking Smucker's face. And I'm just, first thing, pun. Okay, yep, I know what the problem is. So at any rate, so we're just going to go over this really quick. There were no bans in Blitz or Classic Constructed. So the only thing that really happened was the Briar LL. So long and thanks for all the fish. So Rosetta Thorn is gone from Classic Constructed and Briar is gone from Classic Constructed. There were no bans to Lexi. Bullseye Bracers was moved from banned to suspended until Lexi LLs. So it's kind of hard to talk about part 1 without part 2 because everything was pretty interconnected in this announcement. So we're just going to do the full data dump right now. And I did it again. So the next banned and suspended announcement is before Worlds, like 11 days before Worlds. And will LL any heroes that achieve the threshold. Also, PTI events, Road to National events, and Pro Quests are now worth 4 Living Legend points per win. And we will dive into that shortly as to the where and why of it. But for the context of this discussion, we're going to table the 4 LL points and the why and focus on the here and now, because we now can assume that with a pretty good degree of certainty, as the article alludes, that Lexi will not be legal for Worlds. Also, there's a not terrible chance that Icelander will also be gone. Speak up, Charmer. Is this the right thing to do?
I think it's kind of too early to tell whether or not it's the right thing to do. I think that what it does do is it allows us to kind of infer what Legend Story Studios wants to have happen. So they're obviously being very heavy-handed with this, I think. But I also feel like they didn't want to not give Lexi, for example, a send-off, if that makes sense. Like, this is them saying, you get her for one more season, one way or the other, in my mind, right? And so they could have just done something with the ban and suspended announcements that crippled her now, or they could just do this where they're a bit more heavy-handed and then they're saying, like, okay, we know she's going to win enough events. Like, you get one last one with her, you get the send-off. I don't know which one is right, but I feel like from a development standpoint, if Lexi is a bit of a thorn in your side for either stuff coming up or future development, or you feel like she's just overshadowing other heroes that you want to have time to shine, or maybe you're just trying to open things up because, you know, once you get rid of her, there's a lot of, I think, still good aggressive decks behind her that are all pretty evenly matched as far as power level goes. So I think that if you kind of exclude her and Icelander, which I'll talk about in a moment, from the format, things get like even wider than they've already been. And we've had a lot of diversity in the format as far as I'm concerned. So I don't necessarily think that this was a needed change. That's what I'm saying. I don't know if it's the right thing to do, but I can see why they're saying, okay, we'll give her one more season. We'll kind of say, okay, this is our send off, but also very upfront with the we want her gone. But also, like, from just like the game design standpoint of it as well, if you hit her with a bunch of like banned and suspended stuff, or even just like one or two that you're trying to be targeted, I don't think what you want to have happen is what kind of happened with Briar, where you end up at like the 998, and then it's now, all right, you know, what cards are entering the format? How do we plan around it? Because the problem with Briar being at 998 was that technically she was available for like entire seasons at that point. Because Flesh and Blood is now currently operating under this kind of seasonal model, if you will. If somebody's at 999 for Living Legend, you have the entire season to play with that. And then if that hero becomes an issue, now thankfully with Briar, that was not the case. Obviously she won the event, but it's not like she was rampant or sweeping. But let's just say somebody cracked it during testing and then she was, 50% of the field at nationals, or maybe somebody like Charles Dunn does something at nationals. What if he finishes second and then that Briar is now something that you have to deal with for the entirety of the next ProQuest season because, again, 2 points off, right? So it's really hard for me to say definitively, yeah, you had to do this, but I can understand the reasoning. I like giving him a send-off. I like still also being heavy-handed because you're at least letting the players know, hey, we know it's an issue. We're doing something to address it, but we didn't want to cripple it entirely. Just let her join the other Tales of Aria heroes, ride off into the sunset. I suspect this will probably be the last we'll see of Voltaire outside of Living Legend format as well, if I'm being honest. It's possible they might not need to address it until they decide to print another Elemental Ranger, but when that time comes, unless the state of the game is wildly different, it wouldn't surprise me if they say, like, Voltaire, you get the Dusk Blade treatment.
The Winter's Wail treatment, yeah.
But the other piece that I want to talk about here is that the going to 4 LL points per win also signals to me that they are opening up the possibility for Icelander being gone as well.
Yeah, no, I think that's 100% true.
And again, like, I know technically she's a dynasty, or not a Dynasty and Uprising hero, but to me, she'll always be a Tales of Aria hero anyway, because debuted in Everfest and has that ice tag, like, let's be honest.
She's an elemental hero. That's Aria.
This is potentially another send off in that regard, but also based on what we've now seen with Warmongers, and I don't think that Warmongers is that terrible of a card when you don't have Icelander, right? I think that's fine for the format, because then you have to, like, either do your other go again stuff, but then you have to, like, take off either part of your turn, or if it's a Guardian player, essentially your whole turn just to pull it off. I think that kind of thing is worth the weight of playing that card, right? But when it's Icelander, it's just free real estate, baby. And we've already seen a card that we're going to talk about later in the spoilers that I think is also amping her up. And it feels like every time they do something like, suspend hypothermia or amulets, she just gets more tools, right? She's just a powerful hero, especially in Classic Constructed. And I know some folks will be very sad to see her gone from the traditional CC format, but I think that this 4LL is them saying, like, okay, we also kind of want to speed her along so that we can let some of these other, sort of newer heroes shine, right? Because I do think that there's a world where Uzuri starts to rise up. I think Riptide, actually, hear me out, could be a reasonable hero in certain metas. And I think that cards like Icelander have also really impacted him. But also, as I'm looking at what's coming in Bright Lights, if you want some of these heroes to see the light of day, you kind of got to get rid of Icelander.
Okay. Yeah, I've been on the let or die train for anybody that's talked to me about it, or even on this show, where we talk about potential bans, but at the end of the day, it's always been, but just let her die. Like, sure. And the real discussion always surrounded, do you have another banned and a suspended announcement between September and Worlds? Do you want Lexi to be at Worlds or not? And to me, the move to 4 is more to make sure you're putting the nail in Lexi's coffin. So there just isn't really unless there's like a universal community agreement that nobody's going to play Lexi during ProQuest season, which, nope, that agreement's not happening. People want to win. And she's going to be gone. I mean, she needs 74 points. And now it's down to 19 wins takes her home. That's nothing for however many ProQuests are going to be out there. 19 is not even it will be probably week 1 that she'll be gone. Icelander's another another discussion though, and I'll
Yeah.
let you chime in
Well-
here a second. God damn it, Darick! It's like you forgot how this works.
No. I just need to remind you real quick before you get off this point that this ProQuest season is not just Classic Constructed. We do have some
Yes.
limited, and so those numbers won't be as high.
They'll still be really high because if I remember right, they're still over like 200 total ProQuests, and I think over half are Classic Constructed, if I remember correctly. So 19's not much. Icelander, on the other hand, still does need 188. So that's still a significant number, though. So still need right around, rounding, but you need 47. I guess that's not even rounding. That's just the right number. You need 47 wins, which that is complicated and difficult. So I can see Icelander being at Worlds, but there is also two or three callings. I think it's 2 callings between here and there that are Classic Constructed that Icelander wins one of them, and now we're into the danger zone really fast. So there's a lot of moving parts here for Icelander. I think we can. The thing I like here is by increasing that number to 4, you're really making it so that the teams that are out there and the people out there testing for Worlds can just comfortably assume Lexi's going to be gone. And I think that that's why they did it, so that it isn't split testing, difficult to to ascertain, oh, is she or isn't she? It's like, no, we increase the points, get her out of here. That way, people testing for Worlds just know that they don't have to. They just don't have to. Don't have to think about her. Icelander's a different story, though. So that kind of leads us into the discussion of 4 points and why we went to 4 points on RTN's ProQuest and PTI events. And the given reason, and this excited me, is because going to mostly draftable sets in the future as new sets are rolled out, and we all know that we both fucking love to draft, also means more new heroes entering the ecosystem. And as new heroes enter the ecosystem, living legend points get spread out more and more and more and more. So that natural churn isn't going to happen at the rate they want it to with the current point system, with the current, or the previous, I should say, point system, with the previous 2 per ProQuest, RTN, and RTI, PTI event. So, one, good change, good idea. If this is your check on the format, then good idea, well played, well done. Second to that is you just told me that we're going to get a shit ton of draft sets. And that's awesome. And that these draft sets are going to be new heroes, and we're going to have a wider, more expansive game. So I know how you feel about the draft portion of the show. How do you feel about introducing that many new heroes into the ecosystem basically on a yearly basis?
I like it personally. Well, let me start by saying, one, I think we're jumping to the conclusion that it'll always be new heroes. I know that we just got new heroes for this one, but as we saw in Outsiders, they are not afraid to revisit, especially if the story warrants it, and I'm down with that. But I'm also fine with getting new ones as well. I think that there's enough design space with the classes where we don't have to worry about like tripping over some of the other ones quite yet. I don't think that it's going to feel too saturated. I do think that the 4 points per win helps keep things moving along in that regards, if any of them jump out as being like problematic. But I don't feel like I haven't felt like at the moment anyway, we've hit a point where we have so many new heroes at any given time where some of them feel overly wasted, right? This is very hard to articulate because it's a bit of a sweet spot, but hear me out, right? Outsiders, right? This is a perfect set. It's very easy to look at that and say, like, Riptide is bottom of the barrel because he's just not showing up in events the way you would expect, blah, blah, blah. But he was also the third ranger, and the other two are pretty decent. And obviously Lexi jumped out ahead of the pack, and Azalea had a lot of diehards as well. But also it just hasn't really been like the right meta for him. But it's really like just Riptide when you look at that set. The other two were older heroes. Uzuri, while not being a meta darling, has still put up some results, showing up in top eights, doing relatively well, very fun to play, very well designed. So from that aspect, I feel like, if we have sets that are like that, where you get one, playable hero and one that maybe needs love, like every set is going to likely have one of the heroes that just is going to feel like a flop. Now, I'm not going to say they are a flop because they might just not have the tools available yet. It might not be the right meta for them. But to kind of give you an example, again, where my mind is at, right? Some sets are going to have a chain and some sets are going to have a Bolton. That's just the nature of the beast, right? I think, Welcome to Wrath is a bit of an anomaly because it was the first set. And so you didn't have that deep of a pool, and they were all very well balanced, and it was meant to be an intro thing. So when you look at just that ecosystem, they're all pretty on par. But pretty much every set after that, it feels like you had somebody who, like, you look at Arcane Rising, right? And let's be honest, like Azalea was the Riptide of that set, right? And even when you look at early Tales of Aria, as much as we fear Lexi now, in that moment, in that scene, so many people were so ready to like have Ranger have that moment in the sun. And I know like that's where Flexi Lexi comes from, right? Mm-hmm. That's our good buddy Mike just threw everything he had at trying to make her work. And she just couldn't compete at the time with the Oldhams, with the Briars. Etc. So I just feel like when sets come out, you're always going to have like one hero that feels bad, but I haven't had any sets that like where we've hit and I've felt like there's so much wasted space, right? So I think if you ramp up the heroes that come out until they show me otherwise, I feel like it's going to be fine, right? I will give them the benefit of the doubt until I see something not working. But I think that, one to a couple of hits and, one that kind of feels bad, but you might give it love later or whatever is fine.
I do feel like there's a potential that they muddy the waters too much. But on the other hand, I feel like if that's real to me, if I feel like if that's a legitimate concern, then why am I so excited about a Living Legend format where everything is legal? Aren't those waters already muddied? And it kind of just brings me back to, well, no, they can do this. This is fine because we've seen heroes that were completely irrelevant for their entire existence just shoot the moon, talking about Lexi, immediately as soon as they got some support. So they have a button that they can push at any point in time if they just basically say, okay, here's the moment in the sun for this. And I don't think that that's wrong. I think that that's totally fine. I enjoy it. I think that with the particular way they're going to do things, if they focus on supporting classes, not heroes, until you hit your supplemental sets and hitting your specialization slots and your expansion slots, we'll get into a little bit of that here shortly. But I think that once you start using those mechanisms and using those levers to do different things, you're going to be okay. You have the opportunities to right wrongs, correct formats, or just let shit die, which is what's going to happen to Lexi. She got the rocket, she rode it to the moon, and then we're going to leave her ass there with Starvo and Prism and Briar and Oldham and Chain, and they can figure their shit out up there. But right now, it's invigorating to hear that we're going to be getting so much cool new shit. And I love that they're just not afraid of it. They're like, yep, we understand. And we just need to make sure that there's enough churn in the format. Here you go. Here's how we're going to do it. Transparency has always been one of the best spots that LSS has. They are so good at being transparent on their thinking, on their why. And this is just another example of it, and I applaud it. I think that this is a good thing. I see a lot of people saying, well, I'm going to take time off until Worlds now. Thanks for not playing in the Pro Quest that I want to win. That's fine by me. Just saying. You ready to move off of this? You good? Did you get your piece in? Do you feel warmed up? Do you feel warmed up?
I feel warm.
Did your air conditioning break again?
No, I just forgot to turn my fan on. And this is the first time I've sat in front of like the full lights in a while. So.
Oh, well, thank you for doing that for me, I guess. Or I guess for YouTube and for our viewers at the very least. Let's talk about some cards. We saved this one for you. Mara and I specifically did not talk about this card so that we could have a full, unvarnished take on Already Dead, a card that they named after you. Have at it.
Yeah, I have a lot of strong feelings about this, mostly because I feel like I would have done something amazing based on the art on this.
Can we talk about the art really quick?
Because spoiling the video. Yeah, the art is fantastic. If you haven't seen the card, or if you're listening on an audio platform and you can't like see an image or whatever, there's a gentleman standing, and then the shadow that he's casting, the shadow is showing their fate, right? Like that they're already dead, they just don't know it yet. And the shadow is very clearly somebody just decapitating this poor soul. You know, the sword is clean through the heads like going aerial.
The shadow of the hat is even there.
Yeah,
it's so good.
It's so good. I love the art on this card. I'm very sad that this was not something that I got to spoil, because when I saw it, I was like, man, I would have had so many good ideas for how I would have wanted to depict this. But anyway, as far as the card itself goes, it's aptly named because it's already dead. It's trash. It's horrible. It's awful.
Go on.
No, I'm just joking. This card is great.
It's nuts.
It's very misleading. I think that what is likely going to catch some people as far as like initial analysis goes is that this is a contract card, but the contract is the least important part. It's the least interesting part. So the card itself, if you're not familiar, it's a 2-cost red pitch, has 6 attack, 3 block, and then it's a assassin attack. Those are all very relevant for several different reasons. The 2 means that despite this being a contract card, you can still play this in Uzuri and do the old switcheroo. It also means you can pummel it if you really want, aka I really want. But just in general, attack reactions are very important to this card as well, and I'll explain why here in a moment. So the text, all right, so contract is you're contracted to banish opponent's non-action cards, okay? Whenever you complete this contract, create a silver token. So it tells you right out of the gate, you're looking likely to get rid of some defense reactions, potentially, that sort of thing. But there's more to that. So when this hits a hero, however, you banish the top card of their deck and a defending card. Now, this is the interesting bit here. I'm waiting for a rules clarification just because I want to ensure that this works the way that I expect it to.
The answer is yes.
In my mind. Well, maybe yes and no. Okay, because there's 2 different key things with this text. The first is banish a defending card is fantastic on equipment. So if you are throwing a small attack and you're getting ready to do the old Uzuri switcheroo and they throw some equipment in front of it because they're expecting you to, throw something, but they're just trying to mitigate it. And then you swap in the Already Dead, and for whatever reason, they didn't cover breakpoints and you connect just naturally with it. Well, then you get to banish equipment. And there are some key pieces that some people like to block with once and then sit on. With bright lights coming, things like the Teklo Heart jump out to me. We already know how good Furnace is, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of use cases where getting this in as a surprise is nice. But the other part that I'm very interested in, because the timing is weird, right? The removing a defending card happens when you are already hitting, but I'm wondering if it factors into the damage calculation or not. So what I'm thinking is, if you swing with this for 6, and then somebody blocks, let's go through the Uzuri mental math, right? This was the scenario that I was considering. So I swing with a card that's a 3 in stealth, right? Opponent throws a 3 block in front of it. I do the old Uzuri switcheroo. Haha, gotcha. It's already dead. I'm trying to leak 3 damage. And they go, yeah, we're going to throw Sink Below in front of it because I don't want to take damage, right? So they're blocking for 7. If you go over the top, or just get rid of the defense value of a card. So Shred is going to be an all-star with this, for example. This is why it's important that it's an assassin attack, so you can shred on this. But as I said before, Pummel, basically any of your things where you're going to get over the top of that. When it connects, if you can then remove the Sink Below to force 4 more damage in, then this card is absolutely outstanding. Now, the problem is I don't think that it's going to work that way because it requires the hit to happen, in which case damage should already be calculated.
Happened. Yep.
But if that were the case, this card would be like tippy toppy tier, so good. It's already good getting rid of equipment. It's already good because it's a pretty easy way to give you some silver, which if you're playing Uzuri is a little bit more difficult to do regularly, and this opens some things up. But the other reasons that this card is outstanding is it still has that standard 3 block. It still has that 6 attack, so it's another popper that you could include. Depending on how the meta sways, this could very easily, for example, replace your down and dirties if you're not worried about codexes as much. This could replace your humbles if you're not worried about shutoffs as much. The reason that you would maybe consider replacing those is because this has the 3 block as well. It's got a relevant effect. Like, I really like this card. There's a lot of use cases for it. I dig it.
It's beautiful. Also, yeah. 3 foils, please. I would like 3 foils, please, because this art and foil is going to be probably hilarious. I think that you hit everything on the head. Banishing equipment is obviously the first thing that comes to mind. It was the first thing that came to mind with Shred. Was, wait a second, we can kill temper stuff? Oh, okay. This is dumb now. This
gets rid of even non-temper stuff.
Like non-temper.
So, again, I talk about the stuff where like people will block with it, but keep it around. Like, yeah, we already had Shred on Crater Fist, for example, but this gets rid of tectonic plating, right? This just says no, thank you.
Yeah, this says you better have an unmovable, because otherwise I'm eating your tech plating. It's going to make people be very careful and very picky about how they block with their equipment in the assassin matchup. And I think that part alone is very interesting, because if you're removing that tendency to block to get to the breakpoint that you're worried about, because you might just get a pumped already dead and then lose a key piece of equipment, Assassin gets to leak more damage. And that's something that Assassin, sometimes struggled with, was on those non-pumped turns, leaking enough damage to matter. And some of the on hits were just like, kind of a whatever, we don't really care. But if it's the case of, no, we're going to get other things, that's super important. The other part of this is that banishing equipment still fulfills the contract.
Yes.
You still get that shit.
Yeah, if you catch like a reaction on the top and you get rid of an equipment, then this is just straight up 2 silver, which is one of your equipment pieces back.
Which is your buyback. And that was the one thing that Uzuri struggles with, is like, there's really no good ways, consistent good ways to get back those equipment pieces. And now you just might kind of have that on one card. So that's great if you're able to hit 2 things and then buy back any of your armor pieces that you've used. So your mask or your black text, that's incredible. This card has so much utility.
I'll tell you who really, really, really appreciates this card, and that is my Fatigue Blitz Uzuri, because this is a great source of additional banish for playing that fatigue game and getting rid of some of those resources faster, just to make them go empty in the tank. And it also helps replace like some of the top end where you weren't necessarily connecting, or if you were, it was with like some of the subpar banishes. So even just having access to another contract that swings for 5 or more, in this case 6, is so important.
Yeah, this is actually a nightmare for Kasai. To be fair, like looking at this, you've got to be really wary if you're trying to block with a piece of the fridge that matters, like your courage or your valiant dynamos. You've got to really think that through of, okay, am I prepared to lose this piece if it's an already dead that they can get over the top with? Because, I mean, losing, honestly, it may sound anathema to a lot of people, but losing Courage of Bladehold, I think I'd rather do that in most matchups than lose Valiant Dynamo. Because while Courage lets your pop-off turn happen, I win without the pop-off turn enough that's fine, or I'm able to pay for the pop-off turn with just the blues I have in the deck. Whereas Dynamos is a consistent blocking 4 to 7 a game. And that's super important.
The absolute nightmare is when you're like, all right, I'm going to block with 1 card and then Courage and Dynamo, knowing that it's, going into the already dead. And they're like, all right, well, I'm going to shred the Courage.
Yeah, I'm gonna shred the Courage
and
banish the Dynamo, and you lose them both. Like, oof. Yeah, that's a big nightmare. So that's Jesus Christ. I don't like any of this.
You're welcome.
Yeah. Well, I'm not going to sleep tonight anyway, so it's fine. But yeah, this card I think is very good. I think, but beyond very good, I think that this, for the expansion slot cards, it's in the running for the best one with Tome, because Assassin, specifically Uzuri, to a little bit of, giving Arachne some extra help is nice, because Arachne needs it, and it's another contract card. You get to look at the top card of their deck when you play it. Like, there's so many things that are happening with Arachne here that it's pretty good too. But specifically for Uzuri and the ability to switch the card out, this adds a level to the mind games. And that's exactly what Uzuri needs, is to keep the opponent guessing and maybe overcommitting to their blocks, and then they don't have a turn. Great. And you're ahead in the fatigue race. Or they just say, okay, well, if you have it, you have it, and then you have it, and they lose vital pieces, or you get free silver. Like, that's everything that Uzuri wants right now. I think that this is just an incredible addition, and really has me looking seriously at playing Uzuri in ProQuest season. So that's where I'm at with this card.
I know it's not on our list to talk about, but I need to throw out there that I also really love the art on Shriek Razors. We didn't get to talk about that.
That was last week. Yeah. But, the Freddy glove.
I love it. I need a cold foil yesterday.
Preferably yesterday. I'm sad that it's kind of a redundant piece, but
I don't think so.
Yeah, I knew we would disagree, and that's fine.
I don't think so, because I believe that you want it in 2 different decks. Personally.
I don't know. I think I'd just rather have Flick Knives still, but your mileage may vary. We're going to move on to a Warrior card. We're going to move on to Emboldened Blade. This is blue pitch 3 block. My favorite thing ever. Well, not ever, but I do love a good blue block 3. 0 cost warrior action. It's turn a face down card in any arsenal face up. If it's a defense reaction, destroy it, and your next weapon attack this turn gets +1. So,
and go again.
So this is quite good in most ways. If I'm evaluating it as a Kasai card, probably not. It's just not that important. As a Dorinthia card, though, I think it's quite strong. Mainly because a lot of times decks or opponents will rely on arsenal defense reactions to get the Dawnblade that's coming over the top. And if you get to look to see if the coast is clear, you can go as hard as you want to on that Dawnblade, and it feels really good. I think that case with this card is super relevant. And I can see this being, especially in like the bigger Dorinthias that are playing like Decimator Axe and things like that, this is just a snap 3 of. And even in the other ones, I think it's really good.
I was going to say in the big Dorinthias, I think it's definitely a snap 3 of. I don't know enough about piloting Dorinthia. I know what it's like to play against her. But when it comes to like the nuances of piloting, I always defer to somebody much smarter than me. And so Mitch Uber Shouts was talking about this when it was released, and I really liked what his assessment of it was, which was that this is a card that does not really raise the ceiling of Dorinthia that much because, in his opinion, the use case is actually very niche. He's not saying that it doesn't happen, but it's not like it happens every game or even every other game necessarily. But what he did say is that the deck had been struggling to find a consistently applicable blue pitch block 3 that you felt good putting in. And so he said from that standpoint, what you're actually doing is you're raising the floor of the deck quite a bit, even if the ceiling isn't necessarily going up that much higher, and that might still just be good enough, right? It would be very akin to, so like Bravo has like the opposite. They have tons of good blue block 3s, but not necessarily like great attacks. And then Bravo got starstruck, and suddenly we, saw quite a bit more Bravo showing up because that's all you need is that little bit. I think that this is in a similar fashion trying to do the same thing, but at the other end of the spectrum, right? It's raising the floor of the deck, even if it's not going to make the ceiling pop off a ton.
Yeah, no, totally agree. And again, there is a lot of room for Big Dory to be good. There's a ton of room for that. And this is just A+ in that deck. But even in just Little Dory, its floor is a B. C, B-. And that's totally fine. And also, every now and again, you can do the cute little thing of, knowing you have a defense reaction in Arsenal, blowing up your own Arsenal to add the extra power to the Dawnblade to get in there. Like, that is a thing you can do. I don't know how much I'd recommend it, but there might be a use case of that little cute little play making a difference. Don't know. What I do know is that Uber nailed it. This does raise the floor without substantially raising the ceiling. It's probably just exactly a good Dory card, which is awesome. It's not a good Bolton card, most likely, because it's not yellow for whatever fucking reason. That's Bolton's identity in the world, is yellow. He is
a big fan of Coldplay, and I'm not going to judge him for it.
You should. You should judge anybody that's a big fan of Coldplay. Every single one of them needs judged. My personal opinion. Moving on, I just put this in the notes, and I didn't even give any context to it. But we're going to talk about Intoxicating Shot really quick.
Okay.
This is again blue block 3, 0 cost arrow, Riptide specialization. When this hits a attack for 4, when this hits a hero, they create a Courage and Quicken token. Not you, they.
Yeah.
It turns on the traps. That's about it.
But I actually really like that.
It's non-zero.
I think flavor-wise, this is a huge hit. I think that this is a blue block 3, 0 cost attack for 4, right? That also then entices people to run into your traps. Like, I think this is better than it looks on paper.
Oh, all right. I mean, I don't I look at the card and I don't know. I love the art.
I mean, it's a blue pitch that you can also 0 for 4. Very easy with Riptide. It's probably, more than that because, again, with the self-loading stuff, right? So if you play any of your +3 Ranger go again things or whatever, then this could load up a 0 for 7 where you're also saying like, okay, come at me next turn so I can hit you with the traps, whether you like it or not. Like, that's the beauty, is because of like the Quicken token, even if they were trying to dodge an attack having go again, you're like, well, no, technically your attack has go again, so my trap's going to trigger that sort of thing. But it's also a block 3 and it's a blue pitch. So if you don't want to load it up and you don't have the traps on hand, then you just use that to fuel your turn. Like, I don't know. I think that this is for Riptide specifically. I think that this is a lot better than it looks. And I think that it's very hard to judge that because we just haven't seen good Riptide yet. So I don't think we really have a good gauge for what's a true good Riptide card, but I feel like this is one of them.
Yeah, okay.
I legitimately do.
I mean, I'm with you. I don't know enough to have an informed opinion. What I do know is I read the card and it gives a benefit to your opponent on hit. There's two things that immediately jump to mind. One, your opponents are more likely to let this hit.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Mm-hmm.
And if you do get to trap them on the comeback, you get a lot of ancillary benefit. So there are windows for this card to be very good. I just don't know how often those windows are going to come up and matter. And that's where I'm lost. So somebody smarter than me will make it work.
I'm just saying that where I could see that, because this is a blue pitch specifically, where I could see this card shining is when you're pitching it early to set up some sort of second cycle where you're both down to low, and then your opponent, if they go down to 2 and they're trying to play around your traps, and then you're like, oh, by the way, you're either going to full block this 4, which is going to feel bad, like, let's be honest.
Right.
Or, even if you just take 1 damage, you're entering lethal range and you don't even know what trap to play around because they're all live now, right?
Sure.
And the tokens, the best part is both the tokens it creates are not ones that go away at the end of the turn. So you can't even just I'll take a turn off to get rid of them. You've got to play into them.
At some point.
They just sit there. So I do legitimately feel like I can see scenarios where a clever Riptide player would be able to apply this in a way that would annoy the piss out of me. Again, I stand by that. We haven't really seen quote unquote good Riptide yet, but when we do, I think this is probably going to be part of the puzzle.
No, I think you're right. It's, again, my question on it is how applicable can you make it, right? And that's about it. So, I don't know. We'll see. Moving on, we're going to go to Sonata Phantasmia. Charmer, you do this one. I don't fucking know.
Sonata Phantasmia. This is a blue pitch. The cost is XX. Almost feels like it needs a third X there because this card feels XXX rated to me. It is a Viserai specialization that reads, create X rune chant tokens. Now, if you're not good at math, what this means is for every 2 pitch you pay, you get a rune chant. So if you play this by pitching 2 blues, for example, you just straight up create 3 rune chants. Now, it does, however, say if X is 6 or greater, target hero discards 3 random cards. Now, this card by itself does not have go again, but it kind of doesn't matter because the reality is if you're playing this, you're probably doing this as an off turn to set up a big attack later. This is a card that I'm very glad did not exist when the 1-turn kill Viserai was all the rage, because this is a card that would have fed into that deck perfectly. This is a card that also almost makes me want to play that for the Living Legend format, because being able to, you arsenal this, and then if you can go into the next turn with 4 blues, then you're just like, oh, by the way, I'm going to take my turn to effectively deal 6 damage by making you discard 3 cards at random, and it's just going to come later, and there's nothing you can do about it, right? The interesting bit to me is whether or not we see Viserai start doing things to find other ways to get pitch, right? So obviously, we all know Tunic's a thing, but I'm just wondering, like, are they going to consider a version where they play potions now? Are they going to do something else where you can try to do this with, just a straight, without arsenaling this, or with a 3-card hand, that sort of thing? Because the discard 3 cards at random is brutal on top of already a big swing of making 6 rune chants. So like when you pull it off, now again, worst case scenario, it's a blue pitch, block 3. So you can absolutely find a use for this. I'm just like dying inside at the thought of somebody doing that, but then one of the blue pitches is the Arknight Shard, so it's actually just make even more rune chants.
Right.
But yeah, like it's just silly. No, the art's very cool.
Art's amazing.
I think this card is going to look outstanding in foil.
Yeah. My problem with this card is the one line of text that says Viserai Specialization. Why can't Vinset players have this?
Here's the thing. I don't know that is an issue, because Vinset already
you'd never make it. You'd never do it for 6.
Yeah, they already have to banish a card really anyway. Yeah. So like the hoops they'd have to jump through is probably not the big of a deal. But I think the reason that they don't want this to say not Viserai Specialization is because of future Rune Blades, or
probably
like I don't want to imagine like this with a chain for some reason, or Briar. I don't know. Like, it's very easy to look at this and say it doesn't have go again, so it's not that big of a deal. But you have to remember that Spellbound boots are a thing,
creepers are a thing.
Right? So like that's going to creep right up on you, and it's just like, oops, it was an instant. Silly me, just making a bunch of rune chants. I don't know.
I am happy that this does not exist with Rosetta Thorn, though, for whatever reason. For some reason, I know this doesn't have go again, but it still scares me this existing alongside Thorn.
Yeah, when I read this, I was like, I'm just so happy that Skeleton and this never got to see play.
That's the thing, is that Skeleton, you'd still blow Skeleton on a Sonata turn. You wouldn't, or Sonata Arcanix turn. You wouldn't blow it on a Phantasmia turn.
No, but for the play style of that deck, right?
Oh,
where
sure.
You were trying to just like casually build your rune chants, being able to in that deck, this gave you a kind of an offensive turn without actually having to blow your own rune chants. You just make a bunch more, so you're banking them, but also your opponent discards 3 cards, which is the same as if they had to block you anyway, right?
The scary part of this would be one of those turns where it's like, okay, blow Skeleton with 12 rune chants or whatever, Sonata for pitch 3 cards, and then Sonata for 10 or whatever. And in those 10 cards, you find 4 blues, and you had kept this in hand, and you just do this anyway. And your next turn, you're sitting with, 30 rune chants still, or whatever the fuck number it is, and they don't have a hand to do anything back to you.
So I was thinking about just the old standby of, you win the die roll, you choose to go first. You want that turn 0, and your turn 0 is probably, you're going to make a rune chant with Grasp, and you're going to arsenal this. And then hopefully you roll into your next real turn 1. Like, you just take a bunch of shots to the face, and then your real turn 1 is, all right, now I'm going to, hopefully dump 4 blues into this, make you discard 3 cards at random, and I'm going to go up to 7 rune chants. Now I'm like 2 turns away from doing the combo anyway. That's so fast.
Oh yeah, you block with 3 cards or 2 cards, and you pitch a blue to make another rune chant, and then you draw back up, and you just keep cycling like that and waiting until you hit your 4 blues, and then you do the thing, eat their turn, and then fire off a bunch of rune chants. Still a thing you can do.
Yeah.
No, cards bonkers to me. This feels like it's one of those Galaxy Brain cards, and I'm an idiot. So that's more where I was like, fuck it, I don't even know.
You know who really, really loves this card, by the way? Chiana.
Oh no, this is 100% a Gianna card.
Yeah.
This is.
I
I
know.
need foils for that reason. This is a Gianna card.
I know, that's why I'm mentioning it to you specifically.
Yeah, this is 1,000% a Gianna card. And you play Blue Line Gianna with this fucking thing. It's stupid fun. With like Northern Winds and Anthem of Springs and all the other blue things you get to do.
Showtimes.
Oh, Showtime. So much fun. And this is a blue block 3, so you can still pitch it for your Crippling Crushes if you need to. It just kind of does all the things. It's beautiful. Moving on, we get this.
This next card makes me want to quit.
Yep, this one makes me want to stop playing Flesh and Blood.
Art is also fantastic on this one, by the way. We say that basically about every Flesh and Blood card, let's be honest, but this is another one that I think is going to look amazing in foil.
Yeah, this one is trippy. It's Contest the Mind Field. It is a wizard action aura. It's blue. It blocks 3. It costs 2. It just reads all heroes get -1 intellect. At the start of your turn, destroy this. So this just in, Icelander is going to Living Legend because this card fucking exists. And this is bullshit. It's only
block for 2, but like, let's be honest,
dear.
With this.
Right. You don't give a shit. This is okay, well, make your hand suck. And then
hey, you know that previous turn where I Coronet peeked you and you had to get rid of a card? Well, now you're going to have one less card again on top of it.
Uh-huh. And, I guess here's 7. Are you going to do something about this 7? Are you going to block all of it? Oh, okay. Do something behind that too. I guess I don't care. This card makes me feel awful. Like I read it and I'm like, why do I got to be Data Doll now? Fuck. It's
feels I already hate when you are Data Doll,
right? And then Jesus, you're even dumber. Like they've deleted your memory banks. I don't know. This card is. I read this and I just closed the browser.
I want to figure out a way to like actually make it work in Kano. Like that's the problem. Like it's such an easy slam dunk Icelander for certain matchups anyway, because the -1 intellect is essentially one-sided. Right. I will say it's not like the perfect Icelander play. One of the things I'd like to give a shout out to the devs with the beautiful heads up here is that this does cost 2. So it does make, playing this and activating your Waning Moon a bit awkward. You can obviously still do it when you've got your Tunic up and ready, but it's not like you are crippling their hand while also getting some of that chip damage in. So like shout out to them for that. But there is a part of me that just wants to make this work with Kano somehow. Like I want a world where I get to play like 3 of these Kano styles somehow and make my opponent just have a 1-card hand.
That's just why you have to be like this.
I don't even want to win that game. Like that's the thing.
You just want to do the thing?
Yeah. I want to blow like my E-pots just to make it so that my opponent has, no intellect. I want to make us both very dumb. Making a very dumb play. Yes. Just
as much idiot as possible. Okay. Well, I guess.
I think this card would make a great playmat.
This card will be a great playmat. They're absolutely going to make this into a playmat. I think this and Sonata Phantasmia are mortal locks to be playmats. That's just my 2 cents. We also get so we're going to get into heroes now. And
you're one of my heroes too.
Oh, no, I'm not. Your heroes are. Never mind. I'm not going to do that. Like that. This seems like it's a bad rabbit hole, and we shouldn't do that. But we are going to
let's talk about this double D.
Yeah, let's get that double D in there. Let's get that Dash database. We got ourselves. This is the young hero. They haven't shown that there's an adult version yet, but I assume there is because this is a token young hero. But you never know, right? So the text of this is, and this is Charmer's favorite line of text. You may look at the top card of your deck at any time. So you can just be an absolute troll the whole fucking time. Once per turn, you may play notice per turn, not once per turn on your turn, once per turn. You may play a mechanologist item with cost 0 or 1 from the top of your deck as though it were an instant. It costs an additional resource to play. This is an 18 health for intellect hero, so if it is a Dold, it'll be 36 health. Go for it, Charmer.
All right. There's a lot to like about this card, in my opinion. I think that the ability to use this, one of the things when you're playing the boost decks is like every now and then you'll boost away one of your key items that you might have wanted to play, and being able to always see what's coming and not risk that, I think, is really important. The fact that you play it as an instant is also great because it means you're not eating up your action points. It's not messing with anything as far as your timing goes. I really think just like mechanically this solves some of the problems that like Boost Dash ran into before. Yeah, you don't get to start with the item, but outside of that, I think you're going to overall get more utility from this. But that being said, you can look at the top card of your deck at any time thing just really made me happy because they're all right, so there was a Magic pre-release. This is going to take you way back. What was the was it Cold Snap when they brought back Snow-Covered Lands the first time?
Yep, it was Cold Snap.
Like, in the aughts, yeah. Okay, so at the pre-release for that, I got a win. So I have this thing where when I'm playing games, I like to have fun, and sometimes I say stupid stuff. And my opponent was getting ready to attack me for lethal. I had no way to stop it if I blocked with everything. So he says, I'm going to enter my attack step, and he starts turning all of his cards sideways. And so I say, all right, on the stack, I was about to say I concede, right? So I go on the stack, and he goes, wait. Do you mind if I roll that back? I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. I don't care, because in my head, I've already lost.
Right.
He like backs out of the attack and only sends like 2 things.
Huh.
And then I just won the next turn, right? Totally got a win by saying like, all right, on the stack.
Well, so a couple of things. Concession doesn't use the stack. You know that, right?
Yeah, I'm aware.
Okay.
I'm aware. It doesn't use the stack.
No.
But
can't respond to a concession.
But I'm looking forward to the number of times when my opponent does anything at all in Flesh and Blood, and I can go, all right, hold on. I need to, I'm just going to look at the top card of my deck. Wait. I'm going to look at the top card of my deck. It's just that because they're going to think something really important is coming, and it's never important when it's me. I am a dumbass. I'm not outthinking you. So when I go, whoa, it's going to be me looking at the top card of my deck. But I'm looking forward to it. Pun very intended.
But there's going to be that one time where it's something relevant, and you're just going to fucking Yahtzee it onto the table.
Oh, of course.
Sure.
So here's the thing. I will say one of the things that I think has not been talked about enough. Now, granted, I have not been feeling well, so I didn't get to follow quote unquote the discourse. So maybe it was talked about and I missed it. But when I was watching social media discuss the card when it was first revealed, what I didn't see mentioned enough was the fact that it's once per turn. So there are some great ways where you can just get free stuff on both turns, or pseudo free. Obviously, you still have to pay for it. That part's not irrelevant, but like this is one of those great moments where you might consider. I saying great moment because I usually champion Dash as one of the heroes you don't want to run Tunic, but this is actually one of those times where you actually might consider running Tunic as opposed to Teklo Heart, because when you get that one counter on Tunic and you've got a 0 cost item on the top of your deck that you just want to rip off, it's just a free card on your opponent's turn at that point that it can set you up for your turn coming back. And we don't even know what other stuff you might be getting for items. Like we obviously know hyperdrivers are coming back. That's the card that was originally introduced in Dynasty, where when you boost a card, you can get pitch.
Hyperdrivers from Arcane Rise, or it's either Crucible or Arcane originally. That was a reprint.
Oh yeah, you're right. I think it was Dynasty where we got the full cycle.
Yeah, we got all the colors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're right. I think it might have existed before that, but we got all the colors in Dynasty.
Yeah, you got all the colors in Dynasty. Yep.
And what's interesting is in this set upcoming, we also get it as a token item, which is something else that I want to talk about, but I'll wait till the next card reveal to dive into that one. But my point was, just by bringing up Hyperdriver in general, is that we already know that there are items that exist that will give us pitch for various reasons. There's, it's entirely possible that there's going to be items that will help us essentially pay for these items again. And being able to have that access on both turns, I think is really important. So,
yeah, I mean, like, absolutely. But I think that this card basically reads you have a 5-card hand-ish at all points in time, which is sort of fascinating. I think you still have to play Teklo-Heart just because you can do enough shenanigans with boosting, activating Teklo-Heart, doing the thing, having free resources, playing stuff off the top of your deck, keep going, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That it's, and then you also, have the opportunity to go, okay, look at my top card. This is not something I want to boost away, or it's an item I don't want to boost away. Play it first, then look at the top and boost, or whatever. Like, you have so many like little pieces of interplay. I think that this is just a super cool design. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, I mean, whether or not you wanted to run Tunic would really come down to how many zero-cost mechanologist items would you really want to both run and then also make sure that you're getting them into play.
Right.
I don't think that we have enough critical mass of useful ones. I mean, there's a couple that
we have this entire set.
Well, yeah,
right.
We do have this entire set, but
I get the feeling that there's going to be several. Just a thought. So we get some, at least, I guess, for my money, I'm really happy that the mechanologist heroes are all very different in how they play. And we get one more here. It's Max Nitro, which Max has 2 X's, in case you needed to know. So it is Cinemax, not Triple X. So very, very tasteful. But this card is really fucking weird. Shout out, though, to 3 Floating for possibly the best reveal video of all time. It is awesome. You should go watch it. Hashtag no free ads, but this is a free ad because the kids nailed it on this one. They did a great job. But Max Nitro is a 20, on the young hero, 20 health, 4 intellect. I imagine these are also adult. And is weird. So once per turn, 2 pitch to create a Hyperdriver token with 2 steam counters. Activate this ability only if you've boosted this turn. So, okay, that's not that hard to get to. And it's like, but that doesn't have go again. That kind of sucks. Well, Hyperdrivers you control get crank. As it enters the arena, you may remove a steam counter from it. If you do, gain an action point. So this is fucking weird. If you don't know what Hyperdriver does, it has, I gotta see if I can get this right without looking it up. When it comes into play with two steam counters anyway. Whenever if you can remove a steam counter to add a resource, but you can only activate it if you've boosted this turn. Is that right? Now let's see if I'm right.
You're close, yeah. When you boost a card, remove a steam counter and gain 1 pitch.
Okay, so it's not an optional thing. It's when you boost. Okay,
right. And so there's some interesting things that I want to make sure I point out. The token Hyperdriver that is created by Max always comes in with 2. Then there are the cards Hyperdrivers that are a cycle. There's a red, a yellow, and a blue. The red comes in with 3 counters, the yellow with 2 like the token, and the blue with 1. And that's obviously important because this hyperdriver token still just says hyperdriver, still is a mechanologist item. It's a token one. We might get cards that also create hyperdriver tokens. We might get other cards that interact with the old hyperdrivers. We already know that there are old cards like
Nitro Mechanoid.
Nitro Mechanoid that wants to find hyperdrivers. So maybe, Nitro Mechanoid was really intended for Max Nitro. I'm just throwing that out there. Tune into WCW Monday Nitro.
But it's a wrestling reference, so it's fine.
Yeah, of course. That's in the art for Max Nitro. I happen to notice there's some Nitro girls in the background.
There are Nitro girls.
I really hope
this definitely looks like the pits too. So this hero is definitely on the not in a part of Teklo Industries. I don't think. I'm pretty sure that this is the illegal upgrade side of the mechanologist coin.
I sincerely hope two things based on this card, though. One, in the art, he's basically holding a giant wrench. I hope that's his token weapon. I hope we literally just get a mechanologist monkey wrench that you get to swing at somebody. Two, I hope the adult version of Max Nitro, instead of being like Max Nitro, comma, blah, 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 I hope that they print one that's just Max with 3 X's. Nitro. I know it's dumb, but I would love it so much. Just Max Nitro, but with a third X.
The third X. The third X means extra Nitro. I think Teklo Leveler might be Max's weapon, but it's hard to say. Teklo Leveler looks like it's probably Teklo Vassen's weapon.
That's what I thought, because it's based on
Evos.
The number of Evos.
Yeah, so
right?
Just read it. Teklo Leveler is a 2-attack weapon. If you have 1 or more Evos equipped, this gets once per turn action, 3-pitch attack. If you have 2 or more Evos, this costs 2 less to activate, so it's 1 pitch attack for 2, so it's effectively a Teklo pistol. 3 or more, it gets go again. 4 or more, it gets +1. So at 4 or more, it's just a 1 for 3 go again. That's pretty good. So this is actually quite interesting as far as this goes. Then there's a bunch of these other like Evo upgrade cards, which are absolute nonsense when you start reading them. But as we get more Evos, we're going to start seeing some other, putting the puzzle together, really. I will point out that all of them are gas art if you're into like mech shit. So it looks like your Robotech / Macross / Armored Core / Gundam fantasies all coming to life. Heavy Artillery is a good example. It's a 3 cost, 6 attack, 3 block in red. Evo upgrade. The defending hero can't defend this attack with action cards with cost less than X, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped. So sometimes this gets in there. So the card itself isn't great, but the art's insane. Meganetic Protocol is a fun one. It's a blue block 3 cost. Attack 5. The defending hero must defend this with X equipment they control with -1 counters if able, where X is the number of Evos you have equipped, so you can start eating their temper shit. There's just some fun stuff that's out here for the Evos. I'm really interested to see what the upper end of the Evos really looks like. We already see Terminator Tank. We already talked about that one a while ago, and that makes a little bit more sense now.
Mm-hmm.
But, and then we still don't know what the hidden text on Evo Steel Soul Memory is. That probably is very important, and we'll probably get it eventually, but we don't have anywhere near the full puzzle on Evos yet either. So I'm very interested in how all of that fits together.
Yeah, I think for me personally, the thing that I'm kind of keeping an eye on is not just like, what payoffs you get for the Evos, because we've already seen some stuff, as you said, like Terminator Tank, but also what do the Evos themselves do? Because you have to remember that just by like running the deck, like we may be running into situations where you're kind of assembling Voltron even without assembling like the Nitro Mechanoid, right? Like Evo Steel Soul Memory looks decent in and of itself without all of the text even there. I'm curious to see what kind of deck Teklo-Vaesen is capable of, right? Because you're going to start... It's such a weird playing experience in my mind, because when you play Flesh and Blood, and this is one of the things that I usually hail about the game, is that it's a degenerative card game. What that means is that most games you start at your strongest, right, and then you get weaker over time. Now, there are caveats, like always, right? Chain ramped up because of Soul Shackles. You could make the argument that, with a hero like Dory, what you're really doing is ramping up if you get Dawnblade counters. But for the most part, when you have your equipment, you start at your strongest, and then you expend those resources over time. And when I look at the design for the Evos, that doesn't feel like it's the case. What it feels like is you are almost kind of like playing like Prism, where you're going to sacrifice some early health to get your suite online. But then what does that do for you? That's what I'm kind of keeping an eye on personally, is, what do the Evos do for you by themselves, as well as what the big payoffs are?
Yeah, it's weird to me. The way that it looks like right now is you kind of have to play bad cards in order to, by bad cards, I mean bad equipment, to enable the Evos to do anything. But if the payoffs are similar to Evo Steel Soul Memory, where if you kind of assemble the Voltron, you turn into something that's just unkillable, like that does feel very Prism. So I am extremely interested in, and honestly, the art for Evo Steel Soul Memory just looks like the head to the Hulkbuster. So maybe that's what it is. I don't know. This will be fun though. I'm really interested. I guess I'm more interested now than I was before. I know I was kind of down on Bright Lights because I'm not a mech player, but I can see a lot of what they're doing, and it seems really interesting. So yet again, LSS has proven me wrong.
Well, so there's other pieces to this puzzle that I'm just so excited to figure out. So we've seen the proto equipment, right? So you have proto base legs, etc. But the thing that jumps out to me is that says a player may add proto base legs to their card pool in Bright Light's limited format. So does that mean that we're going to have different equipment that still has the base tag on it?
Yeah, we already know them. We already know them. It's Teklo base head, Teklo base chest, Teklo base arms.
They're just like the one with Blade Break.
Yeah, one block with Blade Break.
Okay. Yep. So the reason I mentioned that, though, is that when we have these and we play at least Evo Steel Soul Memory, it says if you have a base head equipped, transform it into this, then equip this. Okay. Mm-hmm. So the other text here says when this transforms from or into an Evo with a different name. So are we going to have Evos that don't require you to have a base head equipped?
Potentially, but we also know that all of these Evos are also bases. So Steel Soul Memory is still a base head, so if you have a different head you want to equip, you can still do it on top of this one. So you can keep cycling.
Yeah. The reason I mention is because they could have just said Evo head, right? But they specifically say Evo base head. So that's why I'm wondering if we're going to have stuff that can transform either from cards that are not base heads, or if we're going to, on the other end of the spectrum, we might have Evos that they're the big payoff, but you only get it once. So if you do it, it's not going to, when it transforms, it will no longer say Evo base head. It might just say Evo head, and it's the creme de la creme of the equipment suite. I don't know. There's a lot of wiggle room that they have opened up here for design. I don't even expect them to fully explore it in this set. I think that they're doing this to lay a foundation that they'll revisit later. But that's my favorite thing about spoiler season, right? Is all the stuff that it infers. Right. And I feel like this is them doing what they always do, which is it's a great job of long-term planning for, okay, we've introduced this new thing. What kind of variations or where else can we explore later?
Yeah, that's the fact of the matter is that Flesh and Blood, and this was a mistake that I thought that I made when I first started playing, is I was very worried about the design space of Flesh and Blood, and it turns out that it's just wide open. They can kind of go anywhere. and they've shown a willingness to be creative with it and not just kind of make the same hero but reskinned a bunch of times. Everything just feels unique in most cases. It doesn't just feel like, oh, well, gave you a new ranger there, but it just feels like you're playing Azalea. No, we gave you a new ranger that plays absolutely different than every other ranger that's already out there. Even when they had assassins, so you have Arachne, and then next set you get Uzuri, and they're completely different. The overlap is they can play the same fucking equipment, and some of the same cards are relevant to each. That's it. The way that the decks play, not even close to the same. So I'm glad that they do that. Even Dash, Dash Inventor Extraordinaire and Dash Database, completely different. Like they're not even close to the same. So I'm very happy about that. I'm happy that they've found a way to keep design space basically flowing so the game never feels stale. That's awesome. So hats off to you. You sucked me back in after I felt like maybe I can take a set off and not care, blah, blah, blah. You fucking did it.
I mean, I was going to care the moment I got good assassin cards in the expansion slot. But I also...
And Iron Man.
But I was also going to care. I was going to say when I got Iron Man, and I was going to care when they hyped up another really great draftable set. Like,
yeah, fine. I guess I'll keep playing. I mean, I'm only 94 weeks deep of a podcast in this shit. Might as well keep going, right? Moving on, because we're getting long-winded and we still have listener questions.
No, we don't.
We have 1, 2. We only have 3, so it shouldn't be too rough. The permanent reminder that, until we're past it, but reminder that, and there's a great video on this too. The 3 floating kids, again, just nailing shit as usual. But December 1st through 3rd in Columbus, you do have the 20K Invitational Weekend. The tournaments for that, for all the different properties and things that'll be played there at the Columbus Convention Center December 1st through 3rd are out on the Realms website. So I believe it's still realmgamingnetwork.com. And go there. You'll be able to explore. I'll put the link in the show notes, but you'll be able to explore everything that's going to be going on that weekend for Magic, Alpha Clash, Pokemon, and Flesh and Blood. It's a ton. Why are you confused?
Because they of course dropped news in the middle of us recording.
What now?
So they dropped information for the Bright Lights pre-release event. So we know it's in the kit.
It's the proto bases.
And I was just looking because there were stuff that I recognized, right? Rainbow foil heroes, cold foil proto base tokens to the winner.
And then what's this fucking thing on the playmat?
But then it says Breaker key art playmats, and I don't know what this card is.
But it's gorgeous.
Has not been released yet, but as somebody who loves the cyberpunk aesthetic, I mean, just dies for it. This card is everything I wanted from this set. Big bright neon lights, cyber people, like action. This playmat is fantastic. So I need to know what the card does now. But that's why I was making the face, because I was like, what is that? That was not a card I had seen yet.
We don't know what it is yet. But this is obviously, it's great because you have a little bit of steampunk with Tekla Vossen and Dash, and then you have cyberpunk with Max Nitro. And I just love the aesthetic of the entire set when it comes to that. I know that a lot of people, or a non-zero amount of people aren't into like the cyberpunk or steampunk aesthetics, but I adore them. I've always adored them. So I'm going to enjoy the art endlessly in this set because I kind of grew up with that shit, honestly, watching things like Battle Angel Alita. It was reading the manga and watching that anime back when I would actually watch weeb shit. Kind of didn't suck back then. It kind of sucks now. But that was like my thing, right? Is those aesthetics. They're very cool. So I'm excited to see what they do with it. Blade Runner is always one of my favorites too, you know.
I love Blade Runner. I fell in love with like Shadowrun.
Oh yeah, Shadowrun's great.
The
Neuromancer, William Gibson, one of my favorite books.
The Cyberpunk tabletop RPG that I have books around here for somewhere.
That was a good one too.
I do enjoy the Cyberpunk game. I really liked the show Edge Runners. I felt like that was
Edge
fantastic.
Runners was good.
I want to know what this art is now, because it doesn't look anything at all like the stuff we've seen for Metric so far, and whatever it is, like, I need more of it injected directly into my veins.
I'm sure that we can fill a syringe for you. We're going to move to some listener questions here. The first one is from Logan, not me, somebody else, with Instant Gaming Respawn, I believe. I need to double check that name because I don't want to be wrong. And they just joined the server recently. And yeah, Infinite Gaming Respawn. That's it. Okay. That's what IGR stands for. But the question is, I am an LGS owner in North Carolina. I've been trying to build a Flesh and Blood community for the last several months, but can never seem to get more than 2 to 4 players to show up for events. I really enjoy the game personally and would like to see it become a staple at our store. We are a gem store. I give out promos like candy. And we even have a big stash of bulk we give away for free to anyone who wants to get into the game. Do you have any suggestions to bring new players in the door? Darick, do you want to weigh in first? Do you want me to do this?
I'll go first because I know you'll have more to say, but I think the initial reaction that I have first is, what have you done for the people already coming through the door? Because I know that some people say like, yeah, I'm not interested, but then that might have just been that moment in time in their life. When Flesh and Blood first came out, for example, I wasn't interested. And then later I revisited it and I was like, oh, this game is fantastic. So what I would be considering, especially with the set coming out and they have the, crack packs and play format that they are specifically, trying to promote for this new set. If you've already got a nice, Magic crowd or people that might be interested in this, I would consider saying, hey, when you come in for Friday night, verbally just let them know like, hey, we're going to do a thing tomorrow. Or, if you're interested in checking this out, we could do something next week. After F&M ends, if you want to play a couple games or whatever, just to get it in their hands, because I think it's easier to convert people that are already into card games to Flesh and Blood than it is to get brand new people. Not because I don't think that the game is good and not because I don't think the intellectual property will hook people, but just because it is a mechanically deep game, and it's not something that I would personally recommend as somebody's very first card game. So like, I think that's the hard part. I do think that, even though you don't want to cannibalize your other audiences, the easiest way to convert people, if you're just trying to get your numbers up, because like the other weird thing as well is games are kind of interesting in that you have to have like a base core before you get more people to show up. And it sounds like you've kind of got that with the 2 to 4 players, but as weird as it sounds, people are more likely to show up to events where they know 8 people will show up than they will if they know, 3 to 4 are going to show up. It's just the nature of the beast, right? And so when you can cross that initial threshold, it will then become easier, because when 1 or 2 people can't make it for life reasons, it still doesn't feel like it's a barren ghostland. And I say that because I'm the worst offender at my own local events, and I hate it, but life hits me a lot. But also, when you can account for people like me where those things are going to come up, but still have an audience, you're just going to attract more people. So that would be my initial response. I know that there's more that you can do, and I'll let the other Logan cover it, but that's my initial like knee-jerk reaction.
You're right. That's a lot of it. The things I've noticed with Flesh and Blood is it draws from 2 different pools of gamers. It does not draw from beginning gamers. It just doesn't. And I think a lot of that is because of how very unique it is. But one of the pools it does draw from is board gamers, because a lot of Flesh and Blood operates similar to a board game. There are functional pieces that are already on the board and are there at all times until you use them. There is a drawback up mechanic, which is very normal in board gaming and feels very intuitive to people who have played board games before. So it does draw from that crowd. The other side it draws from are TCG veterans, because especially OP veterans, because Flesh and Blood right now has the best OP on the planet. It is what it is. It's not saying that their OP is perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but they are doing the most with it right now. That isn't to say that Magic couldn't turn on the faucet at any point in time and flip the calendar back to 2013 or 15 and just be in a better spot. But I don't think they're interested in that. They're making money hand over fist doing what they're doing now, so why would they stop? But the biggest thing that we focus on locally here, where I think has been very helpful for us, is I know there's a lot of stores that host the events. They host them for free for like a Blitz event or a Pauper event or whatever, and then they give out the armory prizes and that's it. What I would suggest is minimal entry fees, like we do $6 and for a constructed event. And then you put 2 packs per player into the prize pool, right? And then you have options then. You can either skew the pricing for, to top performers, or you can just give people 2 packs per player, as a thanks for coming in type of thing. And they're paying less for the packs because they're paying $3 per pack instead. And that's always a good feeling. And then what we have at our locals usually is that people will pop their prize packs and then immediately turn around and hand those cards to the newest player for anything they don't want to keep. And then that just helps the cycle of building those card pools. The other part is hold new player drafts where you're drafting where you're for TCG veterans who have drafted before, because the draft is functionally the same. It's crack a pack, take a card, pass left, do the same with the next pack passing right, and then pass left again. If people have drafted, they've done it. And then advertise and hold drafts, because a lot of times the most intimidating part of playing a new card game is having to build a deck. If you don't have to build a deck, people are more likely to show up. And the other side of that is there are a non-zero amount of people, 2 of them are right here, that half the time you enjoy the drafting the deck more than you do playing it. It is a blast to draft a deck and feel good about it.
People love drafts, and it's not even just card games. Like, there's a reason that you can go do free fantasy football drafts, like during football season, for just drafts, like hours on end. It's because people like to draft.
Right. People like to build.
Yes.
That's just a thing. And giving people the opportunity to do that is super important. And again, a lot of times hold the drafts at cost. Whatever those packs cost you, making a dime off of it isn't the most important part. I mean, I don't know your store's finances. I'm not going to act like I do. However, if you can afford to say, you know what, we're going to hold a draft for $10 or $12. I can't remember what costs on packs are. I think they're about roughly $2 a piece. So if you say we're going to hold a $10 draft, 3 packs per player, and then we're going to give away promos as prizing, people will jump at that in most cases, even if they don't know the game, but they know how to draft, and they'll learn the game for it. It's less intimidating to do something like that, because if you play the game, you spend $10, you get some cards, you play the game, it isn't for you, you're not out anything. But if you enjoy it, maybe you show up to the next draft. Or maybe you do get interested in picking up a Blitz deck and then building off of it. That's usually how you have to do it. Getting people in the door is about giving them the opportunity to experience the game with the lowest possible amount of effort on their end. And typically that's going to be draft or literally giving out decks. Like we've done that too, where locally we're built pauper decks and just handed them out. And that's been okay to some degree, but never as impactful as just holding drafts. So that would be my 2 cents. It sounds like you're set up the way you need to be. I do want to make sure to point out, so you don't feel too discouraged. Here during the summer, our numbers go to shit because people are doing stuff, and as soon as it starts getting cold outside, they come back because there ain't shit to do. So, don't feel too discouraged if you started this. You know, call it. You're in North Carolina. It's nice there frequently. So even if you started this in like March, it was still nice in North Carolina in March. I mean, it's still a shit show here, but don't feel too bad about that. It's super important to not get discouraged and also to be consistent with your time. Same night, same time, every week. Make it so people can count on it. That's, I guess that's my biggest recommendations. Take what you will from that. If you have any other questions, you're in the Discord, feel free to message me. Done this a lot with Magic and this game, and a little bit with Alpha Clash too. So if you have questions, I am a free and open resource. I'm not always right, but at least I have an opinion. Best I got. Moving on. Vintox is back after taking a week off of asking a question. I'm sad. I'm so sad that you missed that. But question this week is: you earlier said you were worried about the new expansion slot being moving in the wrong direction based on your experiences with MTG. It's probably talking about me at this point. Now that we have seen the spoilers for these expansion slot cards, what is your opinion now? Are you still worried or hesitant, or have they pulled you back in for a set you were questioning? I think I've already kind of gone over that. I'm sucked back in. I was afraid that the expansion slot was a reprint slot. And it's not. This isn't the same as the list for Magic. They're putting new cards in the hands of players. My biggest point of skepticism is that it is one expansion slot card every 15 packs. That gives me pause, because that's not a great ratio for a bunch of cards that I want 3 of. But it's not so different from like Majestics in general.
Yeah, I was just about to say, so far we haven't seen anything that wasn't Majestic or better, right?
Well, we haven't. We have seen
for expansion slot anyway.
We've only seen Majestics and Legendaries.
Yeah, so same thing. I had that same pause, but then I was like, well, but like really when you consider it, it's probably the same rate as like the rest of the Majestics, but by doing it so sparsely, you're not ruining the sealed / draft experience, right? Like that's what I was wondering how they were going to, wondering about how they were going to tackle that or whatever. I think this is fine.
Yeah, I'm going to be very sad if I open a Tunic too. Yeah, I'm going to be very sad if I open a Tunic though.
Right.
Like that's the fucked up part, right?
Shriek Razors.
I'll be totally fine if I open a Shriek Razors. But it's a card I don't have. But opening a Tunic is probably the biggest feel bad for me out of the expansion slot, and that says something. Like, honestly, that's me. Well, maybe Wax Off, but the memes.
I'm excited to try to make Wax Off work. Yeah, I'm excited to wax off.
We are all excited to Wax Off. But and then he also said, "Sorry for missing last week. You are forgiven." But I think the expansion slot is well done. My personal opinion. I would love to hate it, because I don't know why I would love to hate it, because maybe then I could actually feel good about taking a set off. But instead, there are some duds, but there's nothing. There are some. There's one card I think that Wax Off is probably unplayable, but I could be wrong there too. Every other card out of the expansion slot honestly seems like it could have a spot in a deck. So they've done a good job of curating the cards to matter enough that people would want them. So personally, I think they did a good job. They pulled me back in. I'm more sad that they pulled me back in. Did you have any other thoughts, Darick?
No, I think like all things, wax off is probably going to be meta dependent, but if we do see a rise of many different kinds of aggressive lists, I think wax off could find a home. It still does what you want it to do for Ninja, which is it's a blue pitch, 0 cost. But the reason that I say like it's going to like be really meta dependent is because like if you're actually playing it for the effect, you want it to be against a go wide deck where you're going to get the most value from your Zen State stuff, but you also want to pair it with likely red wax on because you don't want that to be like too dead either. I mean, blue wax on also does the things you want it to do, but like when I was thinking through wax off, like my good scenario, if you will, was like when you use wax on to block somebody's enlightened strike as go again, right? So like you 1-for-1 block for 5 and 2 their E strike, and then if they swing again, you're like, oh, by the way, here's wax off, and the rest of my turn is like nice and set as well. So
yeah, Zen State's gonna be brutal. So that's very fair. But I guess like for my the setup is clunky. That's my feeling on wax off. Moving to our last listener question, we're an hour and 40 some minutes into the show.
We got time.
We got time. Donnie K asks, out of every hero ever printed, CC and Blitz, which do you think is the scariest to face off against / sit across from when your opponent has a reputation for being a master with that hero / deck? Their examples were Majin with Icelander, Mara with Dromai, Brody with everything, Michael Fang with Oldhim, etc. It's not Michael Fang. I have a win against him playing Oldhim. But I don't know. That's a good question. Who are the masters that you're just kind of like, not winning this one?
Well, so interesting you say that. I don't feel like you should ever have that mental.
No, you shouldn't.
Like I'll give you a good example, right? When I was doing relatively well at the Calling in Indy, I was standing next to Majin Bay, and I looked right at him when they were getting ready to announce pairings, and I said, "You and I are going to get paired against each other." And then we got paired against each other, right? And I said that because in my head I was like, this is probably in the entire field the worst possible outcome for me. So like,
this is what's going to happen.
Yeah. What was going to, and the reason was because I was on Bravo at the time. I really liked Bravo into the field for that event. I still stand by that deck choice, but I ran into just the gauntlet of my worst possible matchups. Hyper defensive dash, which was bad for me. Majin Bay on Icelander. This was when Icelander was a worse matchup for Bravo at the time. My entire sideboard was teched against it. I still did my best. I gave him a run for my money, but I had an off turn at a crucial point in the game, so I did end up losing it. But knowing that it's Caleb on Icelander, I probably should have fear there, but I don't think fear is the right thing. I think respect is the right word. Right? Like I knew I would have to play tight, but I didn't go into it thinking like I can't win this. I think that's the wrong mentality. So the way that I would answer this is like, who are the people that I feel like I absolutely like I have to play flawless, right? So yeah, I think Majin and Icelander is a great example. Mara and Dromai, she knows the matchups in and out. I think just like with Majin, I think you'd have to say Michael Hamilton on Icelander as well. He just knows those matchups in and out. I know he's been off of her for this season, but I would still very much say like I have to play this tight because he's the kind of person who knows how to pivot. Like we saw it in the World Championship, right? You saw somebody arsenal a card and he went, okay, well now like
never attack.
This came up at all, like, and at no point at all in my testing, like I know what to do. I can pivot because I know the matchup, right? So I think that those are good examples. One that I think might not have the respect that it probably should, or actually I'll give you two. I think Dagon on Oldhim at the time would have been something where I would have to respect it because he's somebody who also knows Oldhim incredible. But I'm going to say Matt Folks on Cheerios Briar when that deck was popping off, there's a lot of people who piloted that deck to success, but Matt Folks, and to some extent, I would also say like Tarek, those are people that I think took that deck to another level with the things they were doing with it at the time. So I think that would also be a consideration if I'm just thinking about people with a lot of experience on those lists.
Yeah, the first ones that come to mind are Alexander Vore on Kano. I want no piece of that. I'm good. Like, I already have... Kano's already seem to have everything they ever need on top of the deck against me in the first fucking place, and then you get somebody who is an absolute master with that deck. I feel like I'm at 0% immediately. That kind of thing scares me. In Blitz, Kano, Mark Johnson, aka Mo Bodsley, friend of ours, also just absolutely terrifying to watch him do the mental gymnastics to just destroy people. And then I would say Pablo Pintor playing Chain.
Pablo and Chain is another good one. I was trying to think of more recent things because I have a lot of like historical ones. Pablo and Chain I think is very, very good. Pablo on anything is pretty good though. That's the problem.
That's the other thing.
Pablo is kind of like the Michael Feng across the pond in my mind.
In a lot of ways. Yeah.
Just super consistent, can pick up anything. I think if I was going with people, so specifically people stateside that I would potentially run into at an event, right? Like if I was playing competitively in the current meta, I think the one that would stand out to me would be Rhea on Icelander.
Yeah, that one also was on my list. Was Rhea Adams on Icelander is fucking terrifying. She's just so fucking good with that deck.
Yeah.
And to an extent, her teammate Levi Roush on Azalea is, you kind of start taking that deck for granted, and then you hit a master, and you're just like, oh fuck me, this deck can actually kill me. Oh no, that's bad. And so that's another piece of that puzzle. But right now, it does seem like there's a lot of people. When you see a lot of the people who are associated with decks taking off, going off of that deck and playing like Lexi, that's kind of how Lexi is the best thing to be doing. I will say that anything that Charles Dunn plays that has Sigil of Solace X3 in the list, I think that's also fair. Because
I mean, I would say just Charles in general. And the reason I would say that is because he doesn't have the road warrior status of like a Pablo or a Michael where they just go, where he goes to a bunch of events and hits them. But anytime Charles has like sat down and said like, I want to be ready for an event, when he puts in the time in any game, because I know I've mentioned that, I knew him before Flesh and Blood, any game he puts his mind to, he figures it out. He is great at piecing together the puzzle for him. Like, it doesn't necessarily mean he's going to take whatever the meta deck is and pilot it. Like, he knows what works for him. He knows his play style, and then he just grinds it until he's inevitably good at it one way or the other. Like, right. I don't know any other way to put it without diving into specifics of other games, but I've seen him do it in other games where he's just like, hey, this isn't the meta build, but I'm going to be the best at this anyway. And it works.
Yeah. He locks himself in the chamber.
Yeah.
Like that's what he does. Well, that was the last question. So I think we did it. We got through it. I'm proud of us. Proud of you. Proud of you.
I'm also proud of you.
That's not okay. I'll take it. I need that. Well, thank you everybody for listening. We're going to do a quick shout out to our patrons. Associate producers are, let me get this sorted here because I fucked that part up. Andy, C-Dubs, Kenny, and the Salty Sea Cat. Our executive producers on up are Blaze Storm, Josh, Lance Goodthrust, Matt Two Tokes, Papa Mike, Alex, Philip, Rich, Taylor, and Trevor. If you are interested in becoming a patron of Flesh and Pod, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. The link is in the show notes. There are 6, I think there's 6 tiers. I'm not going to fucking count them. You can figure it out for yourself. If you have any questions or anything else that you'd like to reach out to and talk to the pod about, You can reach us on Twitter at FleshPod. You can join the Discord. The link is in the show notes. You can email us at fleshandpod@gmail.com. This is your, roughly monthly reminder that any and all complaints will be forwarded to Flesh and Pod Legal, a subsidiary of Black Hole Legal, which is the trash can next to Jordan Kennedy's desk. Darick, where can they find you?
Hopefully back on the podcast going forward, and I don't have any more weird medical hiccups. Hopefully as well at your pre-release event or your pro quests. I'm going to attend some, at least locally here in Michigan, so keep an eye out for me there. If you're looking for me on social media, I'm usually just that Charmer in most places, unless I have Charmer, but
Charm 3R.
Yeah, it's Charm 3R because, of course I have to be difficult and all that jazz.
Yeah, if you're looking for Mara, it's CH4RMER, Charmer. It's a different Charmer entirely. But if you're just looking for my personal things, it's just, everything is just my name. It's at Logan Peterson. I do not believe in being anonymous on the internet, just for the simple fact that if I am anonymous on the internet, nobody can hold my feet to the fire about the bullshit I say sometimes, and I really need people to help hold me accountable. And I think that's it. I think we're good. So
I think we're good.
94 in a row. Next week's 95. So rapidly approaching that 100 mark. Maybe I'll take a break at like 105. Maybe 105. I don't know. We'll see. But until then, we'll see y'all next week. Bye.